I thought it would be the happiest time of my life, preparing for my wedding to the man I adored. But one night, I accidentally discovered something that would destroy not only my heart, but our entire future. It's a story of betrayal, self-esteem, and the difficult choice between love and dignity. My name is Sarah. I'm 27, and I live in Seattle. My life has always been pretty ordinary. A steady job at a marketing agency, a small circle of friends, Sunday dinners with my mom. And then, 3 years ago, I met Tyler. I don't even know how to describe it. You know those guys who walk into a room and everything around them goes quiet? That was Tyler. Tall, with that faint smile that makes you smile back. He worked in IT, had that smart, slightly sarcastic sense of humor, and a look that could make you believe anything he said. We met at a party at a mutual friend's. He said, "You drink red wine, so you're either too smart or too broken to drink anything else." I laughed and replied, "Either one or the other." We've been inseparable since that evening. A year later, we got together. 2 years later, he proposed in the most cliched but perfect way. In the mountains, at sunset, with the ring in his pocket and sweaty palms. I cried. So did he. My mom cried when I told her. It was like a movie. We planned our wedding for August, in a small vintage estate outside the city. Instead of classic white roses, I wanted wildflowers. We picked a band that was supposed to play covers of Fleetwood Mac. Tyler even agreed to an open dance, even though he hated dancing. The last few weeks had been crazy. Dresses, invitations, hair trials, arguments with Aunt Eloise about how many guests she wanted to bring. But deep down, I was happy. I would wake up in the morning and look at him, still sleeping, and think, I really found my man. Everything changed on a typical Tuesday night. Tyler went to take a shower. His phone was on the bed, unlocked. We had no secrets. We often took each other's phones to show something, to find a number, or to look at a meme. I wanted to show him a funny cat video my friend had uploaded to a group chat. I opened Safari. He left a tab open. Instagram, direct. I didn't try to browse, it was open. There were messages from a girl I didn't know. Amy. They were flirting. But then there were photos. Hair and intimate. Several. And he replied. He commented. He sent her his photos. My heart sank. A buzzing noise started in my head. It was like someone had turned on white noise. I clicked on next. They had been talking for over a month. When he was on a business trip to Denver, he had been seeing her. I saw the message. "Your skin still smells like me." I hung up the phone. I could hear him singing in the shower. His voice, which I had previously loved, suddenly seemed fake. I sat on the edge of the bed. My hands were shaking. I didn't know what to do. Should I tell him now? Should I scream? Should I cry? Should I run away? Is this a joke? It's true. My eyes started to burn. I gritted my teeth. I knew I had no right to ignore this, but I wasn't ready to answer. He came out of the shower, toweled, smiling. "Hey, have you seen my deodorant?" I looked at him and felt something inside me break. This man I loved lied to me. He touched me with one hand and wrote to me with the other. He slept with me with someone else in his mind. And I was silent. I smiled. "It's on the shelf in the closet next to your watch." He kissed my forehead, and I almost fainted from the pain. He didn't even know that I was not the same anymore. This was the beginning of the end. I knew I had to make a decision, but then I wasn't ready yet. I sat in silence for another 5 minutes after Tyler left the room. He made himself coffee, humming under his breath. The same Fleetwood Mac that was supposed to be playing at our first wedding dance. I couldn't hear the music anymore. I could only hear my own pulse, like a drumbeat in my temples. My whole body felt strangely frozen, like after a major stressor, when my body doesn't know whether to cry or run away. I just lay there staring at the ceiling. I couldn't understand how everything could have turned upside down so quickly. Just a few hours ago, we'd been choosing ribbons for our invitations. And now, I knew that his phone had another woman's body parts, her whispers, her smell, her touch. And all of this existed in parallel with our lives. "Sarah, are you okay?" "You've been quiet today," he asked when I came into the kitchen. I looked at him. The same jawline, the same brown eyes. But I couldn't look at him the same way anymore. My skin felt like it was covered in a film of ice. His presence made me sick, but I smiled. "Yeah, I'm just tired. Today was a tough day." I learned to fake it very quickly. I wore a mask for the next few days. We met with the florist. I talked about arrangements of cornflowers and peonies. We met with my friend Julia. I laughed when she joked about how her boyfriend almost forgot the date of their anniversary. I answered my mother's calls, who was happily planning the menu, and nodded when she asked, "Are you happy, Sarah? I've never seen you so in love." And I felt emptier with each passing day. Every night I checked his phone as if trying to prove to myself that it was just a terrible dream. But the messages remained. Amy wrote, "I dream of us back at the hotel. I miss the way you look at me when I get out of the shower." And he would reply, "You have no idea how hard it is for me to be around her, thinking about you. Just a little more, and everything will be easier." Just a little more? What exactly will be easier? Cheat on me? Live a double life? I started waking up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat. One day, I went to the kitchen at 3 a.m. and just sat on the floor. Tears were streaming down my cheeks. I was gasping for air like a drowning man. I couldn't believe this was my life. I couldn't believe that the man I loved with all my heart was carrying on an affair while we were planning our wedding. I started to doubt everything. When he touched my hand, I would ask myself, did you touch her like that too? When he said, "I love you," it began to seem like empty words, automatic, like a cashier's greeting. I no longer felt protected in his arms, only cold and betrayal. The worst part was that I didn't know who to talk to. If I told any of my friends, they would hate him. If I told my mom, she would hate herself for not noticing. And deep down, I was afraid that if I said it out loud, I wouldn't be able to go back. I wouldn't be able to forgive. I wouldn't be able to live with the knowledge. And in 2 weeks, our wedding would be here. All the guests, the vows, the dress, the rings. And I was afraid of something else, that a part of me still wanted to believe in him. On Friday night, we went to the restaurant where we were going to have our pre-wedding dinner. I put on a red dress. I had my usual makeup on, though my eyes were a little puffy. Tyler held my hand all through dinner. He looked into my eyes and said, "I still can't believe I got so lucky. You're the best thing that ever happened to me." And then something clicked. How could he lie like that? How could he look at me like that, knowing that you were betraying my body, my trust, my love? That evening, when we got home, I said I was going to go for a walk, and I went out to the lake, not far from the house. I sat on a bench. The full moon cast a silver light on the water, and I started talking to myself, like I was in a movie. "Sarah, what are you doing? Are you seriously going to marry him? Do you think you can live with this knowledge? Look into his eyes and imagine Amy." I sat like that for over an hour. People with dogs walked by, couples in love, laughing, and I sat alone. A bride who didn't know if she wanted to be a bride. I knew I couldn't put up with this show anymore. I had to speak up. I had to make him take off his mask, and I had to decide if I was willing to lose everything to save myself. The next morning, I woke up with a heavy feeling in my chest. My heart was beating fast, as if it wanted to run away, and my brain was fighting the cold fog that had covered my thoughts. I knew that today was the day I could no longer remain silent. Tyler slept, the sun shining through the blinds, drawing stripes on his face. I looked at him and thought about how easy it was to forget the pain of betraying someone who loved you. I silently got out of bed, got dressed, and went to the kitchen. The coffee tasted bitter, even though I had added sugar. My phone vibrated. A text from Julia. "Sarah, how are you? Ready for coffee?" I answered curtly, "See you at 6. I knew I had to talk to someone, even if it was a friend. I needed to talk things out, to put everything on the shelves. In the office, I looked normal, although everything was on fire inside. My colleagues noticed my absence, but no one asked any unnecessary questions. I often found myself thinking that I was looking at the world through a film, as if this was not my life, but some kind of role. After work, we met Julia at a coffee shop. I ordered a cappuccino, and she ordered a latte with vanilla syrup. We sat in a corner so that no one would overhear. "You look like you need to talk," Julia said, looking me straight in the eye. I took a deep breath. I found other messages on his phone. With someone else. Cheating. And still seeing her. Her eyes widened. "Sarah, are you serious? You said everything was great between you." "Yes," I nodded. "And I don't know what to do. The wedding is in 2 weeks. Everything around is being prepared. He doesn't even suspect that I know. I can't break this fairy tale. But I can't live with a lie either." Julia took my hand. "You deserve the truth, even if it hurts. Don't let him decide for you. You're stronger than you think." The words sounded like comfort, but also like a challenge. I knew this conversation wasn't about Tyler. It was about me. When I got home, I tried to act as if nothing had happened. Tyler held my hand again, smiling, talking about our plans. I could feel that facade cracking. One evening, he sat down next to me, took my hand, and said, "Sarah, I feel like you're pulling away." What did I do wrong? I wanted to tell him everything, to open the phone, to expose the lies, to shatter his world into pieces. But instead, I said quietly, "I'm tired. I need time." He leaned his head on my shoulder, and I felt that conflicting mixture of love and despair again. That feeling of being drawn to someone and wanting to run away as far as possible. A few days later, I ran into Amy. She was at the same coffee shop where I had ordered coffee. Her gaze met mine, and I saw in her eyes the same look Tyler had, a mixture of guilt and irresponsibility. My heart sank, but I couldn't take it anymore. I walked over to her. "Are you Amy?" I asked, trying not to show my pain. She nodded, and we sat down at the table. It was a conversation I never wanted to have, but one I needed to have. "I knew about Sarah," she said, "but he said you weren't together." I believed him. I sighed. "That's not true. We're engaged. The wedding is in 2 weeks." I didn't mean to do this," her voice trembled. I looked at her and realized we were both victims of the same lie. The weeks passed, and I walked between two worlds, one with the image of a perfect life, the other with pain and uncertainty. I couldn't leave or stay. That evening, after talking to Amy, I returned home feeling confused, but at the same time I felt light, as if the weight that had been on my shoulders had lifted a little. Tyler met me at the door with that same smile that now sounded false and fake to me. I looked at him and realized that I couldn't live a lie anymore. "We need to talk," I said firmly, entering the apartment. He frowned, surprised. "What about?" "About you, about me, about everything that's going on between us." My hand shook, but my voice was calm. "I know about Amy." He opened his mouth but said nothing. His eyes were shining, but not with joy. "How long?" I asked. "Moon," he admitted slowly, "but it's not what you think." I wanted to scream, even though I knew that no matter what he said, the truth couldn't be any different. "That's a lie," I said. "You're betraying me. And it's not just some mistake. It's a choice." He lowered his head. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "But you did," I replied. "And now, our wedding, can I be there for you knowing this? Do you want me to live in the shadow of someone else's presence?" The silence in the room was louder than any words. "I love you," Tyler finally said, "but I was afraid. I was afraid of losing you. So this was all a mistake." "You don't love me the way you think you do," I replied. "Love is trust. It's honesty. And if that's broken, what's left?" He came closer, wanted to hug me, but I pulled away. "I need to think," I said. I spent the next few days immersed in myself. Work, friends, wedding preparations, it all seemed pointless. I tried to be strong, but every minute of loneliness brought new pain. I started keeping a diary, writing down everything I felt so I wouldn't go crazy. Every word was like a cry from the soul that no one heard. One day my mother called me. "Darling, how are you?" Her voice was gentle and anxious. "I'm fine, Mom," I tried to sound confident. "You can talk to me about anything. I'm always there." I burst into tears. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to be weak. "Mom, I don't know what to do," I said through my tears. "He cheated on me 2 weeks before the wedding." "Oh, my child," my mother sighed. "You deserve nothing but happiness. You should do what makes you happy." That evening, I went to the park where Tyler and I had first kissed. I sat on a bench and wondered if I would ever be able to trust again. Tyler caught up with me there. "Sarah, please." His voice was full of despair. "Give us a chance. I will do anything to prove it to you." I looked into his eyes and realized words no longer mattered. Actions mattered. "I'll give you a few days," I said. "But if you want to be with me, you have to look me in the eyes honestly and not hide." He nodded. We sat in silence as the sun set, and I realized that there was a difficult path ahead, but I was no longer afraid to walk it. The first few days after our conversation were strangely tense. Tyler was really trying to change. He stopped hiding his phone, stopped making excuses. But trust is not something you can win back with a single word. Every morning, I woke up before he did and looked at his face. Was it really remorse, or was it a new mask he had invented to make himself look better? His eyes were sad, but wasn't it just pity? He started going to therapy, and he suggested I join him. I thought about it for a long time, but I understood that this was a chance not only to save the relationship, but also to save myself. In our first session together, I sat across from the therapist and was silent. Tyler looked at me, his eyes filled with hope and fear. The therapist asked questions, but I felt the words getting stuck in my throat. "Sarah," he said softly, "do you want us to deal with what happened?" I nodded, even though I wasn't sure. But it was a step toward the truth. After each session, we came home and talked more than before. Tyler talked about his fears, the pressures of work, how he felt invisible. I shared my doubts and pain too. But each step forward was accompanied by the shadow of the past. One evening, I accidentally found photos on Tyler's phone. He and Amy smiling, holding hands. My heart sank, and the fire in my eyes that I had long hidden came to light. "How could you?" I asked, my voice trembling. He lowered his head. "I'm trying to fix it," he replied quietly. "But you did it anyway," I cried. "I don't know if I'll ever forget." I thought a lot about myself in those days. Who was I? The woman who was betrayed, or the woman fighting for her happiness? Should I forgive or start over? My friends and family gave me different advice. Some said, "He deserves forgiveness." Others said, "Let him go and live for yourself." I felt like there was a war going on inside me. One day, Tyler suggested we go to the mountains for the weekend, just get away from it all. I agreed because I felt like we needed some time. We drove in the car, the trees rustling around us, and the air smelled fresh. I looked at him and imagined that it could be different, that we could be a couple again, laughing and dreaming. In the mountains, we walked along the trails, sat by the fire, talked late into the night. Tyler held my hand, and I felt a warmth I had long forgotten. But inside I knew this was not the end. This was the beginning of a journey where we would have to go through pain, betrayal, and doubt. And was I ready or not? Coming back from the mountains had left me with mixed feelings. Tyler seemed sincere in his intentions, but I felt like he was still keeping a part of himself away from me. This gap between us seemed to grow wider every day. After we got back, I started paying more attention to my feelings, reading relationship books, consulting a psychologist. I had a new goal, not just to save our marriage, but to save myself. One evening, sitting at the kitchen table, I noticed Tyler avoiding my gaze. "Is something wrong?" I asked. He stammered. "I'm afraid you don't love me anymore." Those words made me think, maybe we were both afraid of the truth? "Tyler," I took his hand. "Love is not just a feeling, it's a choice. And now I choose to be honest with you and with myself." He nodded softly, and I realized we need to work a lot on ourselves and on our relationship. The following days, I felt myself gradually letting go of the pain and hatred. Tyler was changing too. He began to tell me about his fears, about the doubts that tormented him. And we talked again, sincerely and without masks. But I understood that not all wounds can be healed. One evening, I came home and saw a card on the table. It was a card from his mother. It said, "Sarah, we all make mistakes. If you really love each other, fight for it. But don't forget about yourself." These words became for me the last sign, not to give up and to find balance. The wedding day came. I stood in front of the mirror looking at myself in the dress, and I felt that everything had changed. Tyler was next to me, and his gaze was filled with respect and sincerity. "Sarah," he said quietly, "I'm not perfect, but I want to be better for you." I smiled and took his hand. "I'm not perfect either, but I want to walk this path together." The ceremony was simple but sincere. We made promises to each other that meant more than words. After the wedding, I realized that our relationship was not a fairy tale with a perfect ending, but a real story, with pain, forgiveness, and growth. Several months passed. Tyler and I continued to work on ourselves and on each other. It was not easy, but we were no longer afraid to talk about our feelings, fears, and mistakes. I learned to value myself and my needs, and this made me stronger.